Hey, Jesse.
How's it going?
Good, you?
Good. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, all good. It's all good.
Sweet.
Look at that. We got two shooting guards in the back, too. We got Kobe and MJ.
Yeah, for sure. Seriously, yeah.
Always a good look, right?
100%. How are you? How are you holding up?
Good. You know what? Pretty good. I've been playing a lot of video games, right? Nothing new. Can't do anything else.
Yeah, there's not much. I miss coaching, man, to be honest.
Do you?
Yeah. It's I've been coaching since I was like 16.
Yeah.
And I've been, this is the longest I've ever gone without coaching. So it's definitely a
Was it nice, though, to kind of get a break there for a bit?
you know what? the 2-week extension of March break, I was like, this is great. Cause you get the stressful point of the season.
Yeah.
It's like grand corner. So I was like, you know what? 2 extra weeks of March break is going to be nice, but I don't think anybody anticipated this. And honestly, it's like, I'm itching to go back at this point.
For sure. So I guess, you know what, we'll just address the first thing because a lot of questions, I guess we can kind of just address this from the start. People are asking what's going on with kind of like programs in the future and stuff as of right now.
I mean, as of right now, we don't really have anything going on in the summer. Like, we've canceled our camps. Things are changing daily. Like, we've considered running some beach and things like that. Like, that's something that we're going to keep up in the open.
Yeah.
But right now, a lot of plans are going to the next season in the hope of the start of next season. So we would love to do stuff this summer. Things changes. As long as people are kind of, staying put, keep checking. We're pretty proactive. Like, we would never do something without letting everybody know. So, we'll post it on our website. We'll post it on Instagram. We'll send emails. So I know everybody's eager. We're getting so many phone calls and emails. So
yeah, even just looking at the question box that we had today for you, like there was a lot of questions just about when are we going back, when are we able to start back up and stuff.
You know what? Nobody wants to come back more than me. So hopefully soon. Okay.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, let's get right into your introduction. So for people that don't know, this is Jessy Satti. Jessy is one of the directors of the club. Jessy started playing when you were technically 13U, right? And then it would have been 14U was when you actually became Pac-Man.
Yes, correct.
And then during Jesse's time, he was able to win multiple beach provincial and national championships. In his 18U year, he was also able to win an 18U national championship. So I guess let's just get right into it. How did Pac-Man kind of start? Because I know you were one of the first teams.
Yeah, I mean, the way it started was so my first real experience with volleyball was in grade 7. So this was actually 1 year before Pac-Man.
Right.
Ellie obviously started Pac-Man 8, but in her grade 7 year, I was a student at David Leader Middle School. It was myself, Kadeem, Jordan Langley, Andre Smith, Wilson, like your names in the club. And we were grade 7s at David Leader, a brand new school, brand new developing area, brand new school, lots of new kids coming. And I think within the second day of the school opening, they announced volleyball training. So we're like, this is awesome, brand new, like first opportunity to be on a school team.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, like I really can't remember why we chose volleyball. A part of me just thinks as it was the first, sports team announced, we're like, hey, let's do it. But like I had no previous experience with volleyball. None of us did. Someone told us like that girls play volleyball. It's like, okay, that's awesome too. Like we just did some simple math, put 2 and 2 together.
Right.
So grade 7 was our introduction. We had no idea. Like we knew nothing. Like I'm telling you, like you look at our 13Us like that we have now, and you coached an 11U team or 12U team. Like we were punching balls.
Right.
In grade 7, Kelly, who was in the following year, he was a teacher at Dolphin Middle School.
Right.
So our grade 7 teacher was like, hey guys, I know this coach. His name's Kelly Smith. He's a fantastic volleyball coach. Would you guys be interested in going and looking at his grade 8 boys? And we were like, for sure. We don't even know what volleyball looks like. Remember, this was before YouTube. This was before
everything, right?
I've never seen a volleyball game in my life. Like all I knew, like people are punching the ball like this.
Right.
Our coach, Mr. Burton, brings us to David Leader, Dolphin, and Kelly has a practice with his grade. And we didn't know what to expect. And these guys, it wasn't like they were university players. They were just 1 year older than us.
Right.
So we get in, we sit down on the side, and Kelly started hitting lines. And one of the guys, grade 8 team, he came over to us, and he said hi, and okay, how's it going? And he's like, hey, you guys want to see something?
Yeah.
Cool. And we're like, yeah, sure, what's up? Kelly tossed him a left side ball. He jumps. He hits the ball so hard. It lands, it bounced inside the attack line, and then it flies up and hits the roof and starts banging off the roof.
Wow.
And we were sitting there like, And then the next bangs it off the ground, bangs it off
again. Right.
And the guy did the same thing, and the fourth guy did the same thing, and the fifth guy. 5 guys in a row hit the ball so hard, and we were still punching the ball with a fist.
Right.
So this was before Pac-Man. We didn't even know the OVA existed.
Right.
You know, because now you get kids that come in and say, "I want to be a provincial champion. I want to be the best libero in Canada." We were like, we looked at each other. It was like me, Dre, Kadeem, Jordan. We looked at each other. All we care about is finding
to do that, right? It was just to do that.
Bounce the ball so it hits off the roof. Like, that was our motivation. It wasn't about being a provincial champion or national. We're like, yo, all we care about is bouncing the ball as hard as possible. And that was our first real, like, wow, this is like a legitimate sport. And these guys were not even, they were just like a couple months to a year older than us. It wasn't like these were. And then the following year in grade 8, Kelly transfers from Dolphin to Peter, and then that's how the ball got rolling. That was like, grade 7 was like my eye opener. And grade 8 was like the first, okay, we're going to teach you how to play real volleyball.
Right. So I guess one of the questions that we actually had from someone was, where did the name originally come from? Do you know where that came from?
You know, people ask me that here, and it's funny because the name ended up kind of weirdly transitioning to the video game Pac-Man.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with that. It wasn't like, Kelly, our favorite game is Pac-Man. Like, so what it was it initially started was, you know what, everyone knows what a Pac-Man is. You hit the Pac someone and you hit them in the face. So, I mean, it's terrible, but Pac-Man was a play on, the Pac-Men. Like, it was a play on about a group of athletes or guys that were just so aggressive and would hit the ball. Right. So that, that's all it was. And again, we had a design one year for jerseys and run through the Pac-Man character. That looks cool, Pac-Man, and it lasted like that for a few years. But no, Pac-Man just comes. It's just a words. Pac, the term of like hitting the ball and being aggressive.
Right.
And boys team. So that's kind of where it came from.
Okay. And then I guess kind of moving along your playing career, obviously you and Kadeem played a lot of beach. What was that experience like? Because I know you guys are still friends now.
That was great. Like, the thing is, when you like, Kadeem and I we're family, like, we're brothers, right? So when you play with like a brother or a family member, you have the best of the best moments, and then sometimes you have the worst of the worst moments. But we were so close, and at the end of the day, we had the same mindset. We just wanted to win, know, and a lot of success. I think we won 2 provincials when we played beach together, and but like, I was a hard person to play with. Like, I'll be the first to admit. Like, me and Kadeem are so competitive, but because we had little petty fights with each other, because that's what brothers do, right? For sure. So it's funny. Kadeem to the day said, "Jessy, 5 gray hairs, and they're all from you." Like, he says that to this day. Right. But it's like, that's how it was. But the underlying thing was we loved being competitive and we loved winning, and that's we did that for a couple of years when we played. Right. And then I guess kind of keeping on that topic of beach players, so obviously you had a lot of time to coach Harvey and Shawn. Yeah. And I want to get into that, but before that, Harvey actually made a comment earlier saying that him and Shawn would beat you and Kadeem 21-11, 21-6. Do you have any thoughts? Yeah, there's no chance. No chance? We'd win the first set 21-10, and the second set wouldn't finish. They'd forfeit by the time. Okay. And so in coaching those two, did you see a lot of similarities between the two of them, between you and Kadeem? Yeah, one of the things that drew me, towards Harvey and Shawn is they were just like Kadeem and I, right. Like 2 like best friends, that wanted to compete, and we only wanted to play with each other. We never wanted to split and play with anyone else. And Harvey and Shawn are the exact same. I very quickly attached onto them because they reminded me of Kadeem and I. Because Harvey and Shawn, like, they were both like great athletes, right? But 50% of the time they'd be competitive, and the 50% of the time they'd be yelling and bickering at each other. So I had firsthand experience with Kadeem, so I very quickly, knew how to manage, those 2 guys. But yeah, like, I had a great time. We had so many fantastic experiences, coaching. Yeah, you took them to the Worlds, right? And Mexico? Yeah, so my first experiences when they were 14U, I got to take them to BC. So that was really cool. Like, I was 23 at the time. Like, I was really young. It was myself and another coach, Phil, and we got to take part. It was just us, like the 2 coaches and the 2 athletes, and we took them to BC, and that was like a really fun trip. And they were young enough where they were easy to manage. Like, all they really wanted to do was chill in the hotel room and play PlayStation, and then sleep and then wake up and play. And that was a fun experience. I've had so many good memories with those guys. I'll never forget, because everyone knows Shawn, right? Like, Shawn's like one of the top players in the world. Yeah. He travels the world playing volleyball. But it's funny. He's gonna kill me for saying this, but you know, it is what it is now. The first time he ever got on a plane was when I took him to BC.
Right.
I've never seen someone so scared. Serious. Like this guy traveled the world. It's so we get on the plane and the plane's going, and as it's going up, this guy grabs my arm like so hard.
Right, and he's just scared.
Like, you know, it was an experience. So it's funny because people look at Shawn like, oh my God, like he's the best player in the world, and he gets to play in Italy and Poland and all that stuff. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, man, I sat next to him on the plane. I wasn't
sat next to him on the first plane, right? That's awesome.
You have these cool experiences, and then we actually won nationals that year. That was 14U, so it was worth the investment. Like we made an investment and a trip out of it, and we ended up winning, and they were incredibly happy. So that was my first nationals was my first experience with them. And then Worlds was in 16U.
Right.
That was great. That was, for me personally, that was probably one of the most stressful times for me. Like I took them by myself this time. We went to Acapulco in Mexico for 11 days.
Right.
Like any coach knows, like at that point, it's bigger than coaching. I wasn't just at that point, I was their guardian, I was their doctor, I was their therapist, I was their nutritionist.
Yeah, you're everything, right?
24 years old. So my only goal was to make sure that they stayed alive for 11 days.
Yeah.
Like, we need to bring those two back in one piece, and this is a success. Like, we could have lost every game. But that was really cool because I think their performance was really, really underrated because we went to Worlds and we came fourth.
Right. What
people didn't realize was Harvey and Shawn, we went to Worlds 4 weeks into the OVA beach season. Like,
right. Okay. Yeah, so right at the beginning, right?
All of the other European teams that finished above us, they were training for 7 to 8 months. They had their European championships already, and then they had 4 to 5 weeks of fine-tuning for Worlds.
Right.
We were like laughing because we went there and we're like, we've only been playing for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's funny because then we come back from Worlds and we're preparing for provincial. That's so odd, right? You go to a World Championship and then you come back and,
you're preparing for something completely that's not even on scale.
Exactly. So that experience was hilarious. The funniest part of the experience was, so this is the World Championships, right? All these countries are there.
Yeah.
Coach and every athlete looked like they were from that country.
Right.
So we walk in, it's myself, Parvier, and Shawn.
Yeah.
People are like, hey, what country are you guys from?
Right.
What do you mean? Like, we're from Canada. They're like, no, like, seriously, like, what country are you from? I'm like, dude, we're from Canada. Like, they literally thought that, like, me and Parvier were like Team India and Shawn was our coach.
Right.
Like,
does that take you back? Does that kind of memory take you back to when you guys first started playing volleyball?
Pardon me?
Does that memory, like that memory with Shawn and Harvey, does that take you back maybe to when you first started playing volleyball?
Oh, I'm so used to those scenarios. Like when we grew up playing volleyball, like myself, Kadeem, Terrell, Jordan, Andre, you know, all these guys, there was absolutely no diversity or multiculturalism in the OVA at all.
Right.
When we were 14U, you know, we're this team and we were all, you know, and I had a turban back then. So me with a turban and, you know, a couple of black guys, a bunch of Asian guys were cultural. And then we go to our first OVA tournament and people are like, whoa, like what are you guys doing here?
Right.
We honestly had that feeling. And that's why, like, kids nowadays, I don't think grow up with that level of, you know, that worry. But we honestly felt that, you know, like our club motto is, you know, diversity power. It's honestly powered by, like, we were one group of kids, like 10 or 11 kids when we were 13, 14 years old.
Right.
And go through kind of little hardships because everywhere we went, we felt like the underdogs.
For
you
sure.
know? I don't think people really wanted us to win. People looked at, you know, we dressed a little different. We looked a little different, you know, so that was but again, the good thing about us is we learned so much about ourselves. We became so close, right? And we knew how to, like, feed off of that. Instead of getting upset, like, people are looking at us like we're different, like, we fed off that with, like, you know, we got energy from that. I remember we went to Penn State once.
Mm-hmm.
I had a turban growing up, and the referee comes up to us for a game, and he's like, excuse me, I'm just wondering, like, is your headwear for religious purposes?
Right.
And I looked at him in my head, I'm like, do you own a television?
Yeah.
Have you turned on the news before? Like, but I didn't get mad because of all the experiences that we had. And the truth is that was just the reality that we were facing.
For sure. Right.
But again, we embraced it. Like, we were the underdogs. Nobody wanted us to win. I think the best one was Kelly when we were 13. He says, guys, I have some cool news for you. He's like, we're going to nationals in New Brunswick.
Oh,
and
man.
we looked at each other, and the first thing he said was, where the hell is New Brunswick?
Right, yeah. You have no clue.
We're like, where is New Brunswick? Like, in our brain, it was Ontario, Quebec, and BC. That was Canada for us.
Yeah, that was it for you guys.
Canada might as well been a pie chart with like 3. So we're like, where is New Brunswick? But nonetheless, it was the first time we were traveling on an airplane to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So we were super excited.
Right.
But so we get to New Brunswick, and very quickly we realized, okay, this is not Mississauga.
Yeah, no, not at all.
This is not Mavis and Derry.
Yeah, no.
So people are looking. People are like, well, did you guys take a detour? Like, where did you guys come from?
Yeah.
The best was we're like, listen, if they're gonna look at us like that, we're just gonna make them remember us. So I remember we're in a van, and Deem, Coach Deem. Yeah. I think the club knows Deem.
Everyone knows Deem, yeah.
He's driving the van. You've got Terrell, Dre, Kadeem, Jordan, myself. Safe to say a pretty diverse vehicle.
For sure.
And we're driving kind of slow, and everyone's looking at us.
Yeah,
and
they're all confused.
they're looking, like, okay, and we're like, all right. Deem rolls down all the windows. You remember that song? I think it was a Rick Ross song. You remember that song, Every Day I'm Hustling? Like that?
Yeah.
We cranked the volume as loud. And we had this Rick Ross song blaring, and we're just driving, and we're all just laughing and smiling. We're like, if you're going to look at that, we're going to make sure that you remember us. But so like back to the Parvier and Shawn thing was like, when they looked at us, like, are you guys sure you're Canada?
Yeah.
We faced that. I faced that my whole career growing up. So like we laughed it off. We shrugged it off, and we're like, you know what? Let's let our game, kind of speak for itself.
Right. So one question we actually got here while we were doing the live is, what was one of the biggest lessons you learned while coaching at Worlds?
That was a very unbelievable experience for me. I got an opportunity to meet all these coaches from other clubs, and these coaches were Olympians. Like these coaches competed and had got medals in the World Tour.
Yeah.
From the very last day, it was like the round circle of coaches, and everyone was like, I did this. The Australian coach was Carrie Potter. She won the gold medal in Sydney.
Wow.
So she's like, I won. And the other guy's like, I think. And then it comes to me, I'm like, hey, I coach at Pac-Man Volleyball. We're like a nice little, non-for-profit. We just coach kids for fun. It was a really humbling experience. But learning from those coaches, I was pretty fortunate. I got a lot of mentorship, going to Worlds. I think everyone knows Leonard. Like Leonard, like one of, premier beach coaches. He coaches Brandy Wilkerson.
Yeah.
He was a big part of our beach program. Man, he prepared me so well for that. It was like I went by myself for 11 days, with 2 guys. And he taught me, the best times to train, when to train. It was actually his idea to go super early to climatize to the weather.
Right.
Me, like he had this like awesome stat sheet, and he's like, this is stat the other teams like Leonard so much, guidance, and I felt really comfortable, at Worlds, and it was an uncomfortable because I'm coaching against Olympians. I'm like, what am I doing here?
Right.
Got in a medal, we got medal matches, and we were close, but I definitely wouldn't have been able to get some of the help that I got along the way, for sure.
No, sure. So I guess kind of going on to that coaching side of things, I guess so obviously you've coached 18 of the last 3 years. Kind of what was the difference between each team? Obviously, I think you've kind of told me, right? Because our team was a little bit different compared to other teams that you've had. But what would you say was kind of the main difference?
Yeah, that's tough, right? Every team has their own strengths and weaknesses, right? Like I'd say the first year's team, the 2018 team, they were like an incredibly aggressive team. Like we were giants.
Yeah.
I had 2 6'8" middles. I had Xander, a 6'9" left side. Sod, my setter, was 6'3". I had guys like Art that were 6'6" plus, Jackson Bear, all these names doing to play. Like we were just a monstrous team.
Yeah.
Then the following year I have Peter and Cole and Jackson Young and those guys. They were like a more defensive minded team.
Right.
We dug the ball great. We ran, Trent ran a phenomenal offense, so we didn't want to be the aggressors, right? We actually wanted to play in transition. We wanted teams to hit at us and be aggressive because we had diversified, offense. And then your team, the 2020 team, that was just like a really well-balanced team. You know, we were equally strong, I would say, in every position, you know, and you know, we had a great setter and passed the ball well. And, you know, we had all of our options. We never really, the beauty about you know, the team that you played for, the 2020, we could have went in any direction. And I think we gave a lot of teams grief because, you know, typically, okay, at 2020, we know who's going to, you know, we know which player on the other team is going to get the ball.
Yeah.
You know? If you looked at our game film, our footage, it's all over the place.
Yeah, you didn't really know.
The thing is, we believe, you know, we believed and we trusted everyone on the team. So every team has been different, you know, but it's been good. The 2018 team was like, that was a special team for me, I think.
And why is that?
You know what? That was my very first team coaching.
Right.
I think that every coach has this sort of affection, you know, towards their first team. And I remember I started them with 15U. And I had so many guys from the 15U team that transitioned to the 18U team, like Sod, Arjun, you know, Matthew Powell. You know, I had these boys. I had Tom Williams. I had Tyler, you know, who plays at Mac.
Yeah.
So stuck with me from day one. And we went through a lot with that team because that was my first team ever for coaching. So I had a lot of stress and anxiety. I'm like, I want to give these guys a really good experience.
Right.
Like, I only have my own experience with Pac-Man, which I just said was super unique. So I'm like, I can't coach those guys the same way.
For sure.
The way to, and that was just a special, that like when we won their nationals, that team's always going to have a, you know, special place.
So I'm just looking at the chat here. Avi's asking if they were the greatest 18U team. Would your 2018 team have beaten your 2018?
Oh man, that's a tough one to answer. I mean, I don't think I can answer that. You know,
no.
I mean, I played on the 2008 team. I have to say my team better, like by default, right?
Right.
But
yeah.
We had some killers on the 2008 team. Like, don't get me wrong, Xander was a beast, and you know Jackson and Powell and those guys. But like, man, we had Terrell Bramwell. You know, we had Daniel Deering. We had Kay, you know, Derek Quinn. Like we had so many tools. Like the beauty of this is people talk about it because you can never go back. It's like the argument between LeBron and you know, Michael Jordan. It's something.
Michael Jordan, yeah, you can go back and forth.
Never equate, but it's if both teams were meaningful enough and achieve something, they're actually cool things to debate about. So
right, yeah, for sure. And I guess Parveer is trying to make a little argument for the 2016 team.
Which team?
His team, his 18U team.
Did he play for us or? Listen, that team was unbelievable too. Like it's hard. Like I try not to. Like you shouldn't make winning the most important thing. Like, you know, people talk about 2018, 2019, 2008 because those are the years that we won. But like I think we've been in 5 or 6 finals in a row, 18U finals.
Yeah, which is a big deal.
You can't take away from 2016 was Shawn, Tariq, Parveer, Jordan Prairie. You had J-Fig, like Jordan Figueroa on last week. Like that's like that team is like a legitimate problem. Like that team has to be put into the mix. Like,
sure.
Here and saying, you know, those guys didn't win. No, that team was like unbelievable. You know, if we could go back in a time machine, like I would love to see the matchups. But no, I will give the nod to the 2016. That team was beyond impressive. But you know, for my own personal, like everyone has this affection towards their own team. Mm-hmm. On my 18U team, and that nationals was a little bit of a stress for us. So the way it worked out was really, really good.
It worked out really good. So I guess looking back at the 2018 team, right? Obviously, you said that team was pretty special to you.
Yeah.
Given that you had some of those guys from 15U, would you say there was kind of like a tight bond there?
Oh, 100%. Those guys were just different. They loved volleyball. Most of them were classmates together. Like a couple of guys were at Marcy's, and you know, most guys were at Saga. But those guys were tight. And I know, like, I used to drive a lot of the guys to the tournaments. Like 4 or 5 guys used to take to all the tournaments. So they also had all that, you know, bonding time, you know, to get to know. And I use those opportunities to tell stories about when I played, right? So that team truly adopted the culture of our club, you know, because I just did my best to share experiences and share stories. I never wanted them to be like my team because our team was my 2018 was very unique. Something that, you know, you can't recreate something like that. You got to. So I was actually pretty strict and pretty hard on the, you know, my first, you know, I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to trash talk. You know, I want your game to speak for itself. I want you to be respectful, and I want people to, you know, I want you to be role models. You know, like I tried to do a lot to make that team went in that direction, and it was just a perfect storm, man. Like I would not change a thing if I can go back in time. We had some losses as well. We had some tough losses, like in provincial, but we always showed, we always bounced back and did well at nationals.
Yeah, and ultimately ended up winning, right, the last 2 tournaments.
That
for
we
the
did.
last 2 teams.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we won provincials and nationals, despite doing terrible on day 2 of nationals that year.
Yeah. And then, so I guess in terms of like that relationship, right, with some of those guys who have been on the team for a while, would you say it was almost like kind of like, have you had any experiences with Kelly, like when he was your coach, that kind of helped you kind of maybe like feel like you were really close to him?
Oh, 100%. Like Kelly took care of all of us. Like we wouldn't, this whole operation wouldn't have happened, and our 18U nationals went in 2008, wouldn't have happened if we didn't have a coach like that, right? Because, he, drove us to our practices, took us to our tournaments. He gave us jobs as coaches. Like, we'd run house leagues. We started house leagues at a young age. Like when I started at 16, it was, Kelly started these house leagues. So a bunch of us, majority of us could work and pay for our fees so that, our parents didn't have to. So the thing that when you build a bond like that, and that was something that I wanted to do with future teams, is that there's no way you cannot be indebted. And to be honest, there's no way you can't not work hard matters at the end of the year. A coach that does something for you, you do enough for the kids so that at 14 in the finals, they look over and they see the coach and there's no way I'm not letting a ball hit the floor without going for it. There's no jump into the bleachers and try to play the ball, right? So now Kelly did that for all of us, every guy in the team. And I think what happens is all of us that came back and coached, we have a lot of that in our own coaching style is, do the best for the athletes that you have. It's worth it, even if they drive you crazy. We drove Kelly crazy more than 100 times,
And I know you had told us during the season a little bit about your story with your dislocated shoulder. What was like kind of, maybe you can give the people watching a little bit of background for what happened there.
Look at you, Shawn, bringing up bad memories, eh?
I have to.
So in my 18U year, I got an injury. So I separated my shoulder 4 weeks before provincials. I told Kelly this story years later. So I was just being an idiot, and I was wrestling with a buddy. Like back then, we were into like wrestling and stuff like that. Yeah. And I dislocated my shoulder. So I'm freaking out because my shoulder is sticking the other way. But it's funny. My parents are upstairs. I didn't say, well, I'm not telling them. They're gonna blow this out of proportion. They're gonna. I'm like, let me figure this out. So I separate my shoulder, and the first person that I call is Kelly, my coach, because he has a sports background. Yeah. Diagnose my shoulder, So I call Kelly, and my plan was, first things first, I do what any 18-year-old guy would do, and I was gonna lie. I was gonna lie about the whole situation. Right. I can't a month before provincials that I was being dumb and So I called Kelly and I said, hey, Kelly, I might have dislocated or really messed up my shoulder. And he goes, what did you do? And at that point I realized, I didn't even make up my lie. Like I didn't even figure out what to say. So in panic, I'm like looking around, and in my basement I had this like ping pong table, and I was like, I was playing ping pong and I slipped and I fell just out of the blue. So he's like, okay. And he said, you know what? He's like, be there in 20. So Kelly comes, picks me up, and as we're driving to the hospital, we're like, listen, we're gonna spend 5 hours at Credit Valley. At the time, we had a team, Christian Cold. He ended up playing at UCLA for a bunch of years. His dad had an emergency at St. Joe's. Right. So I'll never forget. I've never been yelled at so hard in my life. I called Christian, and I said, hey, bro, is your dad working by any chance? And right away, he's like, Jessy, you idiot, what did you do? That I think I might have dislocated my shoulder. And he goes, what's wrong with you? Are you an idiot? Provincials is in 4 weeks. Yeah. Sure enough, we go to St. Joseph's. His dad gets me in, and third separation. So provincials was in 4 weeks, and my recovery time was 6 to 8. Right. So that was a bit of the dilemma facing in that moment. And I should have never lied, because that like carved me after. Like, I don't know why, and to this day I don't know why Kelly did this, but we have our Pac-Man newsletter. He put a blast on the Pac-Man newsletter. I think he did this because he knew I was lying. Right. He writes in the newsletter, and it goes to all of our members, and he goes, it's like the headline. It's a Jessy Satti with ping pong injury, like something.
Right. Yeah. Something.
So embarrassing. I'm like,
Right.
I was like, bro, like that's how you're gonna do me, like ping pong accident.
Right.
A couple days later, we had a scrimmage with the Barrie Elites, and we fly out at Mississauga, and we had hundreds of people. And this was before social media, so it's not like people are messaging me on social media. So I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like I gotta go. There's 400 people at Mississauga secondary. Our whole club is gonna be there, and I'm the loser of the ping pong accident because I lied. So I go there with my head down, and everyone's like, hey, what happened? Like half the people knew the, and I was like, okay, we gotta stop. I gotta stop lying, you know. So that was the injury, and it was 4 weeks for provincials. Luckily, I was getting better. I didn't play the full provincials, but I played a little, like not as much as I would have liked to.
Right. And then I guess just going on to injuries, then I think it was your 5th new summer you dislocated or broke your ankle as well, right?
So that was in the finals of 18U Nationals.
18 Nationals, okay.
You could write a book on my 18U year.
Right.
Like the amount of things that I went through with our whole team. So after, you know, we came 3rd at provincials, you know, we had a lot of injuries. I didn't play much. And then I was feeling good at nationals. So we're doing really, really well. And, you know, Daniel Deering had a bad ankle sprain the day before. Kadeem had injury. Christian had a broken. Like we were literally held together by going into 18U Nationals in our last year. We get into the finals and we're playing Manitoba. And they were like really well coached. They were coached by Garth Pischke. He played for our national team. He won. Yeah. Manitoba, like complete, like, you know, volleyball Mount Rushmore, you know? And we're in the finals and we just started playing unbelievable. We were just like firing, you know? They beat us in nationals in 17. They killed us in the semis. Right. So we were in the finals and we won the first set like 25-16. And second set was close. And I think like halfway through the second set, landed on, it was a tight pass and I landed on the heel. And I rolled I just thought it was a roll. It was pretty bad. It ended up being a bone in my foot. Like I got later, but you know what? Like it was my last year. I had adrenaline. Like it hurt, but it wasn't like at 18U, you're gonna have to cut my leg, right?
For sure.
Played, but I remember the whole time like this cannot go into a. I'm like my foot is on fire. I'm like this. I have to win this in 2, and of course we didn't win it in 2. Like of course it went to a 3rd set.
Yeah, that's how it works.
And then in the 3rd set, you know, I remember because I was like in quite a bit of pain, but I didn't say anything. And Daniel Deering had he had rolled his ankle pretty bad the day before nationals. And I'll never forget this. He just looked at me. He's like, dude, I'm in as much pain as you are, and we just got to fight through it. And like when he said to me, I was like, you know what? You're 100% right. And it went back to like what I told you, like what Kelly had done for us for all those years. You know, a stupid little ankle injury is not going to, you know, take me away from, you know, working hard and, you know, trying to, you know, make something of like all the work that our coach had done. So sure enough, we go through the 3rd set and 10, you know, 5-5, 10-10, 13-13. And then, we won 15-13. And that.
So I want to talk about game point after. But in the semifinals, you guys played a team that was from Ontario, right? Your 18U year?
No. We played a team from Winnipeg.
Right. Then the team from Ontario was on the other side.
On the other side of the bracket. That Ontario team, and that was actually like our rival team. You know, they had beaten us in the semis of provincials. Right. They actually lost to the Manitoba team. So we could have matched up against each other, but they ended up losing. But to be honest, like we wanted to play Manitoba because they had beaten us at nationals last year. Like even though that Toronto team beat us at provincials, like we had this thing. Like when it came to nationals, like you always want to get a little bit of vengeance on the team that took you out, you know, the year before.
Yeah, certainly. And so who was on that team from Toronto?
Oh, that was like an insanely stacked team. Like a lot of guys that played at a high level and played professionally. Like, you know, Steve Hunt, he played at the University of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Eric Matson, he won a national championship at Alberta. Sam Schachter, who's a beach Olympian.
Yeah.
You know, like the list goes on. They had a fully stacked team. Like they had
a really good coach too, right?
Yeah, they had Mike Chumley, who was coaching for a long time, and he had coached some really successful teams. So, like they were definitely like a rival team, and it hurt us to lose to them at provincials. But again, we weren't really at full strength. Like, you know, Derek Quinn did a great job setting in the provincial semis, but I played a little bit. But you know, it would have been nice to play them. But to be honest, it if I could go back in time, playing the Manitoba team, I wouldn't change that. They knocked us out in 17U.
For sure.
That was the team that we needed to beat, and that was the best team. That Manitoba team had won everything. They won 14U, 15U, 16U, 17U.
Right, yeah, they won everything.
We were the underdogs, right? So that was.
Was there any big names kind of on that team that maybe people would know?
Yeah, the Garth Pischke had a son on the team, Dane, who ended up playing in Manitoba and was like a phenomenal player. They had an outside hitter, Chris Voss, who was a junior national team member and professional player.
Right.
Really big names, and they had some really good. They had a really good coach. So they were good. Like, it was down to the wire. And 13-13, 13 in the finals. It was definitely a moment.
For sure. And I guess during that time, right, Deem would have been your assistant coach. So a lot of people saw kind of Kelly and Deem as kind of like a duo almost, right? I think it's similar maybe in some senses now with you and Dave. Maybe you can talk to me a little bit about your experiences with Dave.
Yeah, Kelly and Deem are like a great partnership. Deem's like the brain. We make a joke. We call Deem the brain trust. Like, he knows everything, right? So Deem was really good. He was our staff guy, and Deem really cared for us, man. He was with us all the time. So like, I see that relationship between Kelly and Deem, and that kind of stemmed my relationship with Dave as a coach. Like, I've known Dave for a long, long time. He was a teacher at Rick Hansen, and coach. So I grew up playing against him when I was at Mississauga Secondary.
Yeah.
Then I actually played for him for a couple of years when I went to Sheridan. And then now, like, it's crazy. Like, he went from being my coach, and now he's my assistant coach. Like, it's funny how things. Yeah. But Dave is like, he's one of my closest friends. Like, he's probably, like, he'll get mad. Like, he's old enough to be my dad probably, but genuinely one of my best friends. He honestly, like, always calling and checking up on me. He coaches because he loves volleyball. He loves being around. He's a Mississauga guy. We're actually neighbors. Like, we live like couple steps away from each other. So he's the perfect guy for, our club. Just a guy that comes and he cares, and you had what he's like, and he's fantastic, and he wants to stick around and help, and we always want to find ways to use guys like that. So him and I seem to have this nice little thing going, apparently.
For sure.
Like, we're just gonna keep riding the wave with Dave. But no, Dave is the best, man. Without him, I wouldn't have success, right? The thing with him is that my weaknesses are his strength. Things that he's really, really good at, I'm not so good at, and that's why I think we're a good balance.
Yeah.
My role is to take care of the team and watch my team and make sure my guys are, playing and running our offense, and Dave solely watches the other team. Dave's watching the opponent, and he's scouting them, and he's tracking them, so that every time we play them, he gets a little bit of information. And when we play them in May, we have lots of data, and that we were always
make a huge difference.
Yeah, we were always pretty prepared when we played, when we played the team. So yeah, Dave's the best.
So I guess kind of moving on to that. So obviously we announced on the page, right, that you'll be coaching the 18U team next year. I guess, so this is your 4th straight season, right, coaching 18U. Like, what is it that you enjoy about the age group?
That's a really good question, Shawn. I don't know if I've figured that one out yet. No, you know what? The thing I've liked about 18U that I've noticed over the years, because now that I've done it a few times, I see a bit of a trend and a pattern, is we're getting athletes at 18U that are there because they want to be there. They know that, like, it's, they're there to put in work. There's always a couple of years where guys are not into it, or, maybe they're not as committed, and, they're just there because their buddies are there.
Right.
Notice that at 18U every year is we only get the guys that are there to work hard and give us 100% of practice. And as a coach, I think that's probably one of the most valuable things. If you're in a gym and you have 12 or 14 guys that are all working hard every practice, I think that's like a dream situation for a coach.
Yeah,
we always get mad when, like, this guy work hard and this guy slacked off. Like, my experience with 18U these last 2 years is those guys just came to compete and came to play, and then just prepare for the next level. Like, we've had a lot of guys, alumni, that are doing really well, and not just wait until their 3rd and 4th year to get. Like, we have guys that are becoming starters and contributors in their 1st year, and preparing them for that and getting them to that level, that 100% is probably the best thing about 18U. It's really stressful, don't get me wrong, because I don't want to say it's a problem, but what's happening now, because we've won a couple of years, every 18U team kind of takes on weight, and we have to win now. Like, I don't want people to ever, it's hard to get that out of kids' mind. As much as I tell them, guys, it's not about that. It's about, we're training you to get ready for the next, be a good person. You're 18, you got to be the role models for the other kids in the club, for the younger age groups. But it's, what it's like. It's very hard to get it out of their head that
for sure.
Think, well, we have to win everything at us, because they won last year, so we can't be the only team that loses. So
for sure, yeah. And I think that was one thing that our team felt a little bit this year, right? Given that you guys had won back-to-back years, was almost like we almost needed to win, right? Just because of what the success was like in the past, right?
And as many times as not to think like that, you're a kid, and people talk, and it's just in your head, right? So I understand that too. To be honest, you need a bit of stress and pressure,
sure.
to perform and things like that. So I mean, that's the tough part about it. But for the most part, I'm just lucky I get guys that come and work hard. As a coach, I feel pretty fortunate.
For sure. And then I guess kind of moving towards kind of obviously with you spending a lot of time, right, with the club, what would you say is one thing that you're probably most proud of? Yeah,
that's a good question. There's a lot of things. I think it would be easy for people to say, proud of the championships, the wins and things like that. But I think the most important thing was the alumni I think the best compliment that we can ever get is when a guy comes back or a girl comes back, after they're done their playing career or during their playing career and offers to coach with them and give back to the kids. You can take away, all the rings and the championships and banners and stuff like that. But I think the ultimate number one compliment is when someone comes back and says, hey, can I coach? Like, hey, I'd love to coach, I'd love to coach a 12U boys team or 11U girls.
Yeah.
They look at you, you're in your 18 year and you're coaching at the same time.
Yeah.
We have young coaches in the club right now, like, Nathan and Avi, for example, that coach 14U boys team. Like, you guys played in our club 2 years ago.
Sure.
You get all these people coming back, coaching teams. And I think that is the absolute biggest compliment. I'm proud of a lot of things. I'm proud of, what we've done in the community. Again, volleyball was never really catered to, the multicultural crowd.
Yeah.
I'm proud that, the club stood for something and we believed in something. And now you look at our club, we totally adopt this mindset of, being a diversity powered club. I'm proud of that a ton too, right? Because again, talking about a sport that's not necessarily designed for you. And you kind of, you fight all these stigmas and all the, all the looks and the, the chatter.
And you find a way around it, right?
That's a really meaningful thing. And it means, and I think that's why a lot of our main coaches, have come back. Like, I'm a former athlete. Kadeem is a former athlete. Petit is a former athlete. Alex is a former athlete, everyone, Dre is a former, like, all these guys come back and coach. And it must be because of the experience that they felt when they were with us, or, that the journey through, right? Like, I'm with my old teammates all the time. Like, we're best friends to this day, and we talk about these moments a lot. So I'm definitely proud of a lot of things.
I guess kind of just talking about pride. One thing that I think everyone's noticed is Navri takes a lot of pride, right? And kind of like his religion, right? And he's become kind of almost an ambassador, right? For being a confident Sikh around the volleyball community. Like, how does that, like, obviously given that you've coached him a little bit during beach, like, how does that feel?
Yeah, you know what? Like, so I never got to coach Navreet as a head coach. I always kind of coached him in beach, but I grew up playing. I had a turban growing up when I played volleyball. I wish that there was someone like Navreet who was older than I was to kind of look up to and kind of know how to handle myself in certain situations. Like, I think that's the best way to put it, right? Because when I grew up playing, I was the only Indian kid playing who had a turban. So for me, I was like, guys, I don't want you to look at me this way. I just want to be known for my skill and my game. Like, I tried to divert away from that because I didn't have any, I didn't have like a support system.
Yeah.
Like, AIC Navri, like, he's like, before anything, before a volleyball player, before a student, like, he's a proud member of the Sikh community. That's his first and foremost, pride. And he actually uses volleyball as a platform, to promote his community. And the way he's become an ambassador is unbelievable. Like I wish I had that level of courage that Navreet has. And again, if that, he would have been a great person to have as a mentor a couple of years older than me. Unfortunately, I didn't have that. I had to kind of go with the flow. But no, I'm incredibly proud of Navreet. I never coach him as an indoor coach, but he really embraces his culture, and he deserves credit for it because, volleyball in our culture is booming, right? Like, you see in the area that are playing a lot. You know, we're a big part of Indo-Can volleyball. You know, and it's a culmination of, you know, a lot of Pac-Man kids, and it started by a good friend of mine. So
Yeah.
that's great too, because now kids are now, you know, used to all these young, you know, parents bringing their young children and seeing Navrits and Odds and Arjuns and Avis, you know, and they're coming up to me and saying, like, "Can I get my kid into volleyball? My kid's 6 years old. Like, how do we get him in? How do we make him like that?" So that's been a fantastic thing for our community, and Navri is a great ambassador for that. A lot of them are.
For sure. And so one of the questions Navri actually asked here was, who would you say like would be the top 10 greatest Pac-Man players of all time on the male side?
Yo, that's
hard, right?
that's a really, really top 10.
Yeah, top 10.
Maybe we go like 5 or something. I don't know. You know what? I have to put Trell up there because that's my guy. You know,
For sure.
He's the most competitive guy I ever played. You know, he's up there for sure. You know, a name that a lot of people don't know, like David Williams, like he was a guy that played with me. You know, it was a long time ago, so people don't really know about him, but he's up there. Like, I have to put Shawn up there. You know?
Certainly.
Shawn's up there for sure, especially with everything that he's achieved after the fact, right? Like now playing pro.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is in no specific order. So before these guys start getting mad,
Yeah, before they start saying who's better and stuff, yeah.
Their Twitter fingers ready to bash me. And this is in no order. I'm just saying off the top of my head, like we had great players. We had Brendan Coppers.
Yeah.
Okay. He played at McMaster. Xander, the Ketrazinski brothers, like they're
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. Jackson, yeah, the list, dude.
There's so many, right? You've got Zach Albert, right? You've got Stephen Carey, a bunch of guys.
Exactly. Yeah, Zach, like man, Ethan, like as a setter.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm just fortunate that I got to coach a lot of these guys, and I'm fortunate that these guys got to come up in our system. Like we're talking about some great volleyball players, and they're all coming from the same place. So, again, that was in no order. Shawn's getting a little
defensive. But Mundu also asked, create an all-star team out of the Pac-Man athletes from the past and present team. And again, I guess it's the same concept, right? It's hard to pick just because there's so many athletes, right?
You guys are stressing me out. These are tough questions. So what, like a starting lineup type thing?
Yeah,
Tough. I don't know.
It's hard too because a lot of guys also change positions, right? When they go to play that next level.
Yeah, it's tough, man. And they change positions. And dude, I've coached so many good players, like outside hitters, like Terrell, Shawn, Xander. Like, you know, there's so many.
So many, yeah.
In no particular order. And middles, dude. I had the 2 best middles. I had the 3 best middles in the country on my 2018 team.
Yeah.
I had Jackson Bear. I had Tyler Pavlik, and I had Matt Powell. I know. I went to Mac, Jackson, Western, Powell went to FTC. Like I'd have those guys as middles, but I also had Daniel Deering. This is a tough one. Setters.
You got a lot of good setters. Ethan, Jordan.
Yeah, Ethan and Jordan Figueroa, like any one of those. Like Ethan was he was always one of my favorites because he was very calm, cool, collected. Like he team really, really well. You know? But yeah, that's a tough one.
There's a lot of options, right?
Yeah, and we had so many good positions, right? That was tough. But some of those guys would definitely be up there. We had a lot of good liberos, you know. You're up there, Avi's up there.
For sure.
Jordan Pereira.
Yeah, for sure. He's got to be up there.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
He was gone there for a little bit, but he came back his 18th year, right?
You know, Manu, that was a tricky question, man. I don't know if it can get me in trouble.
And then Shiv had actually asked a question. And obviously you coached a lot of different players, right? Through beach and indoor. And his question was, who was maybe the best player to coach? Like who would you say was one of the more kind of coachable players?
Oh man. Again, I'm gonna get in trouble for this one too.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm not gonna say favorite players, but I think one player that stood out was Sod was my setter from 2015 to 2018.
For sure.
And one of the reasons why I bring up Sod is because he did not miss one practice in all the years I coached him. Even if he had an injury or something, he would come to practice and he would check balls and he would, and he was never not the hardest guy in practice.
Right.
Like, I'm being serious. Like, every practice, he was the hardest working guy. Every practice, he was there. And on top of that, and we've had these conversations, every practice, he was holding guys accountable. Like, he wouldn't let a guy just not go for a ball. And any guys in the live right now in the comments, like, for a fact, you've all been yelled at by Shawn, at one point or the other,
I had this year too when he came out to practice. I got in trouble from him too.
Oh, for sure. And he comes back and he's like, Jessy, what's wrong with your team? You need me to lay into him? And I'm like, yeah, for sure, man. I'm like, that's the best. When we have guys that come back, like, every guy here has been yelled at him, but it's like, I totally get that. Like, he's a winner. He wants to win, and if a guy's slacking next to him, he's gonna lay into him. So a lot of amazing athletes that I've coached, but Saad just sticks out of my head because he kind of embodied, the ultimate competitor.
For sure. And then I guess, you know what? I had this thing I wanted to do where maybe I rapid fire kind of players' names that you've coached. And maybe you can give me like a little brief kind of like your thoughts on them or stuff like that.
Rapid fire, eh? Like
yeah.
Jeopardy or something. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, something. But the first one is all three of the Jessy brothers.
Oh yeah, that was I think I was pretty fortunate to be able to coach those guys like Xander, Cole, and Trent. What's unique about them is all three brothers are national champions. Like, all three of those guys, like, I think that's like an insane accomplishment. Like, you have three brothers that have the same account. Like, I don't think anyone can go back and say that they've done that. They were great in their own ways. Xander was an absolute machine. I remember, like, before every practice, I bring the guys in and I say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how does your body feel?
Yeah, how does your body feel?
On a preserve that, we want to make sure guys are healthy. And, 1 is, coach, I'm torn, can't even move. And 10 is, like, I'm ready to run a marathon tomorrow,
For sure.
Xander was never below an 11 out of 10. The coach, I'm an 11. Coach, I'm an 11. We could be the practice after a 3-day tournament. Coach, I'm an 11. And he would hammer every ball. But it had to get to the point where, like, Xander, you got to relax, man. Like, Xander said, I know you're an 11, but you need to, So Xander was great. Cole was, Cole's fantastic. Cole's like the nicest, one of the nicest kids I've ever coached. And he's fiercely competitive, like what he's doing now. And he was such a great leader for us last year. Like, Cole was always the young guy, right? He was always the guy that was playing down a couple of years. And then last year was his first opportunity playing his own age. And it took a bit of time for him, but he quickly became an awesome leader, and him and I have a cool relationship. I remember I visited a friend in California, and I actually got to see Cole when he was at UCLA. I had his ring and I gave it to him, and we had a nice lunch. And like, Cole's one of my favorite guys, and then Trent was one of the most dominant setters I've seen at 18U. Like, he was 6'6". He was a blocking machine. He could set the 30 if it passed over the net. Like, the ball would be as high as the antenna, and he would reach and he would set it. And like, Trent was an absolute machine, and he ran one of the best as I've seen. Like, our 2019, like, Trent was a big part of that. He was like, those three brothers should, they're pretty fortunate. But the fact that all three brothers have that experience, 10 years from that, that's a really cool thing for them to have.
So I guess looking onto that 2019 team, I guess the next player I have is Jackson Young.
Yeah. Freak athlete, but honestly, like, the most growth I've seen from a player in like a 1-year span that I've had them. Like, I like to think that, every athlete gets better, when, like, I'm a coach, like, I want to hope that everyone gets better. He had the most growth I've seen in terms of like volleyball skill and maturity, He very quickly acknowledged that he's got a lot of skill, and he honed into that, and he became a leader. And like, we didn't make life comfortable for him. Like, we moved, he was a left side, and I moved him to the right side because, as a coach, you got to, situate your team the best way you can to have the best team. I put him in positions where he had to play middle. And he's running 50s and 30s in transition. Like, I didn't make life easy for him. And every time I said, Jackson, will you? And before I would finish, he said, yes, coach. Yes, coach. Anything you want, coach. Like, he did everything for the team that year. And that was a part in his growth and his physicality. And then look at him now, right? Like, first year in the OUA, he's killing it. I think he was a second.
I think he was a second team All-Star. Yeah.
Saying, like, I'm so happy. I'm so happy for those guys. Like, that was pretty impressive.
For sure. And then the last player I have from this 2019 team is Peter Ragos. Obviously, you spent a lot of time coaching him at Beach as well.
Yeah. I think the best way to explain Peter is Peter's like the pound for pound king. You know, Peter's 6 feet tall, but he plays like he's 7 feet tall.
Right.
You know, for what Peter is, he's a phenomenal passer. He's a relentless defender. You know, he's got a cannon of an arm.
Yeah.
Like Peter was our glue that year. Like, you know, we had a lot of guys that really contributed, but Peter was like our passing stabilizer. He was the guy making all the. He was a good lead by example type of guy. Peter's a machine. Like, he was a fun guy to coach because same thing with Peter. He's always operating at a level, you know, and he played a ton, and like it's like he never got tired, and he always had the extra step. You always appreciate you know, coaching guys like Peter, because you have a guy that's going to work as hard as you can and every point is meaningful for him in a game. So
yeah.
No, Peter's like a fantastic person. He was a great player.
So I guess let's move to your 2018 team a little bit. One that you coached for a while, Abby.
Yeah. Probably the best serve receive passer I've coached in a long time. He just had this like unbelievably good platform, and he could pass anything. He was actually a fantastic outside hitter for us. He played left side for us. He played right side for us. You know, he transitioned over to, you know, the libero in 17U just because we had monsters on the team. You know, we had all these big, huge, tall guys, but he was an insane outside hitter. Like, he's crazy athletic. You know, I remember in 16U, like, in Abby's like, he'll get mad at me too. He's like 5'10" or something like that. Or I'm gonna say, oh, I know that. But he was running like inside X's and bouncing the ball inside the attack line.
Yeah.
The only reason why I made Abby a libero is because we had 7-footers. You know, like, Abby continued to be a great left side. He passes the ball unbelievably. He's insanely smart. We had years in 18U where Abby was playing left side. He would try to rest guys like Xander and all the big. Abby was like, coach, I'll play left side. Like, he always wanted to play left side. And like, he's hitting off hands, he's rolling. Like, he was great. And then when we made him a libero, he was just, I remember at Nationals, I've watched those games over and over. I can't recall like 1-0. Like, that guy was just, I think everyone was on fire that year. You know, everyone played really, really well. That was an interesting year for sure. Like, that Nationals was crazy.
For sure. We got to wrap this up because I'm just getting a notification from Instagram saying that we have 1 minute and 45 seconds left.
Awesome.
So I guess being one of the directors of the club, what's next for the club?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, let's obviously, like, we want to get through this. We want to get through this COVID, obviously. But in terms of what's next, man, like, we have about 5,000 members in our club that play volleyball with us throughout the year. And we have about 250 rep athletes. We have 5,000 house league athletes. For me personally, and I want to find a way to get to 10,000. I want to find a way to continue to expand, you know, getting as many kids in the community and all communities playing volleyball. You know, the goal is if you can get kids to buy into our sport, and if you can get kids to, you know, play at a young age and show them that volleyball is actually important. I think a lot of parents are realizing that too. Like, and even like the purpose of this Instagram is just shedding a little light. Man, volleyball is a great sport. It's a true team sport. It's not like, you know, basketball and soccer. Like, you can choose to not pass the ball to your teammate. You can choose the ball. And volleyball is like, you have to give it to your setter. You have to set a player. And if you do things, you won't, you know, you're not going to have any success. The goal is, you know, we're at 5,000. How do we get to 10,000? How do we grow to become a massive volleyball powerhouse, and then continue to just flush out, you know, really good athletes. Like, continue to have guys go to the level and, you know, contribute. So that's definitely our big goal, I think. Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on. That was awesome. I think there's still a lot more I'm sure we got to talk about. I'm sure we'll find some time to do a part 2.
Well, like, you know me, I have like a million stories to go, but I appreciate you putting me on, Shawn. This is nice. You're doing a really good job.
Thank you. We'll talk later.
And I appreciate it.